Recently, I have been talking about the wisdom and compassion. Using the words are very tricky, and that's one of the points that I want to share in this video. But when I talk about the wisdom and compassion, and I also mentioned that Zen Buddhism is related to more wisdom, and Shin Buddhism is more related to compassion. Of course, many of you may not know Zen or Shin Buddhism, so all these words pointing something may not carry the message. But still, words are such that without experience, the meaning is not clear, but still we have to communicate something, so it requires some experience base, or if not, imagination. But given the situation of who I am, who you are, if there's anybody listening, that's the basis. And still, we want to clarify certain issues so that at the end, we can live our life well. So, back to wisdom, compassion. So let's start from that one. What I was talking about is that the wisdom may be more related to the intellect, the brain, and the compassion more related to feeling, heart. I think that might carry some message. And the other point I shared was the will, the energy source. So those are the three elements. In one of the videos I talked about the wisdom, compassion, and will. And I also talk about the three analogy of life, pointing that the will is related to like a root of the tree, where the nutrition, energy, water would pop up. In our body, we have the brain and heart, body at the core. If you know awakening experience, you may, or also if you know yoga, you may realize there are certain chakra, and the bottom chakra is the base and where the energy pops up. So that the tree analogy and our construct have some similarity, that when the energy is to pop up, that's very important. But then the next thing is that the blockage, certain chakra may be blocked for whatever reason, and therefore the heart may be blocked out, or the brain may be blocked out. So the case of the Jill Bolt Taylor I mentioned was that her case was the stroke, blocked out is the brain, therefore she was more connected to the heart, and therefore as a result she could feel as if she was in the Garden of Eden. Nirvana. Peace, because the words and the concept was not necessary there to be in that state, and there was no blockage, and therefore she felt as such. And that is also the point when we do the meditation. Let the mind left alone. So the thought pops up, you let it be. And it may evaporate, or it may stay there. Then you get caught up in the brain. So if you get caught up in the brain or intellect or the logic and use of the word, the shift is there, and the unbiased way of our mind and body, heart system may be developed. Therefore, the energy flow may be more biased than balanced. So when I use those three elements, that is just to characterize. It's not the whole, but it would at least give some symbolic view of some sort of balance of compassion, wisdom, willingness, and break through the barrier so that we have a whole being energized and have the sense of waku waku, I call it. which is blissful sensation, the sensation of aliveness, that everything is functioning. If I think about the situation in life, it may be like this. It may not be a good analogy, but it may be easy for me to explain, so bear with me. I can picture me like a samurai or swordmanship, and you walk and figure out how to live, and there may be a case of someone attacking you from any direction. Let's assume that. It may not be realistic, but sometimes life is like that, so that you have to deal with the unknown situation pop up and be able to find the right course. So to have that, in early videos I mentioned about the calm and quiet mind. You have to have a mind calm and quiet, not caught up with this and that, but rather empty. Empty may sound weird, but nothingness, but be aware of what's going on. Calm and quiet. So when there's some movement, say the tree branches or the leaves or the wind shifting or the noise, you are aware of what's going on. In fact, you are aware of what's going on outside, externally, but also internally. The word I use, transparency, is interesting to communicate this point, if I can share. Transparency is like a linkage from external to internal, and there's no blockage. So you're like a samurai, ready to protect, or if necessary, do some sword fight. I don't know if that's a good example, but be able to avoid himself to be in danger. Because there are lots of traps to live in the samurai days, especially. And you need to be secure about what you can be. So there's a training actually. There was I think the Zen master possibly, but could be a samurai training a disciple. And he said to the disciple, you can attack me any place. And he can defend that. That was one of the practice. And the next practice was that this disciple is to protect himself from whatever the direction this master may attack him. That's not the easy practice, but that's the kind of a situation I was talking about. If you have a calm, quiet, flexible mind to know what's going on from moment to moment, know internally and externally what's going on, and be able to process information so that the energy is flowing smoothly without blockage, and do the right action so that you secure yourself, but also help others. Helping others with compassion, and helping others with instruction, with words, maybe wisdom. So that's the connection of how the whole being can be equipped to any state, because the external situation changes constantly. Everything is impermanent. And the internal situation changes constantly, right or wrong, because you eat something. There's Sapolsky from Stanford talking about what is free will. And he was talking that if you ate something, you're sitting in the hard chair, you behave differently. So there's a biological process going on, the hormone, and whatever the karma, you can call it, or habitual pattern developed, would give you a biased way of responding. So to train yourself to be transparent, say empty-minded, be aware, it's not a simple thing because it's a continuous process. So if you had to describe what that is by words, It's very difficult. So you have to talk from different angle, as if, or perspective. But at the end, is that practice of defending, if that's the way to look at, or finding the right course of action, given the situation that's changing constantly, externally and internally. So I use the word, and when I talk about that, this is what I mean. Let's say, and I have said in various videos, that we have two universes in our construct. One is the universe in the mind, and we do this word and logic, cause and effect, and figure out, and we may occupy ourselves like that 90% of the time. I don't know the actual figure, but if you're working and writing the report, writing the tax, legal document, choosing A to B, compare, and what's the maximum outcome, you use the mind like that to do the work as well as to live your life. That's one dimension of the universe. The other one is that as we are here being alive still, what's going on? Amazing is this whole universe is functioning on its own. I use the word law of universe. It's prevailing everywhere. We may not realize it if we are contained in the mind and living in the mind as if that's everything. But if you open up your mind, be aware, no thinking, then you can hear, see, smell, internally functioning of the kidney or movement of even a hormone or blood, or become more sensitive to what's going on. External, internal, awareness, being, clarity. So you start to figure out what's going on, kind of like a biological feedback. And with the experience you've got by that time, and that changes over time obviously, you choose the right action. And if you fail, you learn and go through the learning to come up with a wisdom or understanding so that you can live better. I use the analogy of tree, that the tree energy pops up and the wind blows and storm and lightning hit, and accordingly you have to, metamorphosis. You figure out the way so that if the branch is broken, you deal with it. If the water is short down in certain area, you deal with it. The sun is shifting or windy, you deal with it. So that's an organic process of how the universe may be prevailing in the case of tree. But the same thing for the dog and cat and amoeba and us as human. And that's the whole universe by itself, following the law of nature. So it's a miracle that we exist, all the plants and insects, everything, and the stars, all following the law of nature. To realize that requires empty mind, awareness, and relating to that to live is a different way of life compared to be living only using what we got in our mind. What we got in our mind typically is certain logic, word, configuration. But behind that, even that is included in this law of nature because it's a manifestation of everything, is what I said with the other universe, which is the infinite space of the universe where the law of nature prevails. As if, like a miracle, we exist. We can even get diluted. How sad it is. But that's what happens. But we have ability to go beyond the delusion and the mistake and the learning if we can see not only living in the constraint of the mind, but connected to the root of who we are, relating to the flow of the universe. So the mastery of samurai, I said, but this is mastery of life. Everyone is different. To universe structure, it's unique to human, but maybe not so for those others who are living in the Garden of Eden, because they have a very limited intellect. But they have still some sense, even glimpse of the wisdom and compassion. And that's the state we shouldn't forget as we live in the modern world with AI and all the other stuff to go with it. So maybe that's long enough and good enough. But the point was that we need to know the whole construct of who we are, how we are operating, what's the possible danger and opportunity in terms of how we use the brain and the heart, and how we come up with the wisdom and compassion. You may come up with the wisdom only related to the mind, or you may come up with the wisdom or compassion related to the whole universe, how it functions, if we have a way of connecting to the root. And that's something we should not forget. Be aligned or connected so that our life is a whole, not sub-optimizing in a small space or limited space of the mind. We can be rooted so that everything has a clarity and the true wisdom and compassion may come out with energies bubbling up, flowing smoothly. Then we feel, this is what the meaning of life is, as it is. Possibly. Thank you.